Hey guys, welcome to the Human and Machine. Today we have another interview with the Red Village, a leading dark fantasy franchise in the metaverse. And let them tell you all about all the details on what's coming up. So today we have with us two of their team members. We have a Brendan, the co-founder, as well as Compton, director of content and onboarding. How about we kind of get into, the big vision, right? And like why the Red Village? Because as a gamer, I have thousands of game options in front of me. So why should I,
Yep.
learn more about Red Village? And what's like the storyline behind it?
What we sort of saw initially when we looked at the world that was being built around gaming in this new age, and I think the sort of transformative impact that NFTs were having on gaming at the time was in a very specific, a very niche type of game, which is that sort of play to earn model that you alluded to before. And that's cool. That's fine. That's its own thing. It's not really my thing, but it's definitely its own thing. And it was really powerful in the way that it, I guess, brought that narrative across to the general population and help explode sort of Web3 gaming. But for me, it's like there was a big gap in what was being offered. Particularly back in 2021, the sort of early days of this. I guess catastrophic sort of reimagining of gaming, and there was no dark fantasy. And for me, that was always, I call it a niche, but it's not a niche, right? It's a giant segment of commercial gaming. So what we saw is a lot of games that looked very cartoon-like or very childish, or they just had that very bright, very vibrant sort of feel to them. And that's great. That captures the attention of one sort of gamer. But there was nothing really dark and really mature that was out there on the market. And still to this day, there's quite a dearth of it. There's not a whole lot of them available. And so we sort of thought, what are some of the games that we like to play? So like I said before, Diablo, or Elden Ring, or The Witcher, or Skyrim, and games like that have a bit of a heavier theme and a bit of a darker palette. And that's really something that we thought was just a huge unexplored segment of gaming. And so that's where we started, right? So we looked at what do people want to play. Let's you don't try and build for everyone. You try and build for I guess you do try and make your mark on a certain area, and that's what we've done with the Red Village. So when we think about the Red Village, it really centers around the lore is all based around the Blood Queen, um, Corsenia, and it's quite a dark place, but it is mixed in with quite a lot of humor as well. So I guess from a thematic standpoint, The Witcher is really a pretty good point of comparison. That there's some pretty scary things that happen. There's some pretty evil monsters, but at the same time, it's balanced by this real sort of almost like pub humor, right? There's a lot of laughs in there as well, and that's really
Mhm.
important to us. And that wasn't actually what we initially set out to do. We initially were going straight down the Diablo route, right? And trying to recreate, like Diablo 2 and this sort of thing. But then what we found is that the community that developed around us over the first, 3, 6, 9 months was really, really passionate, but also quite funny and had this dark sense of
Memes.
humor. Yeah, and
Many
obviously,
memes. Yeah.
of course, there's memes, right? That's exactly the intersection that
Yeah.
we're operating at, right? You're not working in a silo. So things like memes are huge in popular culture, right? And so that started to permeate into what we're building here at the Red Village. And we thought, why try and push that back? Why not embrace that? And so that's really become a core part of what we do. So yeah, there's a dark storyline, and there's a dark history, there's a dark past, and we're sort of going through the steps in developing all of this narrative at the moment, for the release of our title, which I guess we'll get into later, but or of our next title, I should say. But it's really interspersed with a lot of humor. So we want people to have fun. The last thing we want is you to sort of enter the Red Village and feel like you've been sucked into this really depressing, dark, sinkhole. We want you to be able to get into, the Discord and have a laugh, but also in the gameplay itself, there's a lot of opportunities just to go, okay, that was a pretty ridiculous thing that's just happened. We're looking at ways that, for example, there's one of our tournament mode, which is currently live, or one of the scenes is set in the Village Tavern. And that's literally a place where, at the moment it's a fairly static scene, but in the future, that's going to be something that's quite dynamic. And you can do a lot of stuff in there that you do in a bar fight, right? So it gives you a lot of opportunity to, yeah, I guess just embrace, the fun side as well as being a little bit darker with the lore. So it's a balance that we sort of strike, but we don't really mind where the needle sets. But yeah, Compton, I guess you can probably talk more from a player experience side, how you feel about it.
when you think about your best gaming experiences as a player, usually those experiences go into two buckets. You have those single player games that you grinded in, 2 a.m. when you're supposed to be in bed, getting ready for school tomorrow. Your RPGs, story games, so on and so forth. But then you have all those games that you tie back to awesome experiences with friends, playing Halo with friends after school, raids in WoW and RuneScape, even thinking about IRL games, Friday Night Magic at your local card shop. And so one of the my general thesis is that the games that will win, especially during the bear, are the games that are tied to communal gaming experiences. And so one of the things that's dope about TRV is not only do we have this tournament mode where you can put champions in and they fight against each other, but every single championship we have has these streamed final events that are really huge. All the community bands together. We hop on stream. I'm commentating along with other awesome battle masters. And we do live breakdowns and analysis for our 1v1 bracketed tournaments, kind of similar to March Madness. We have reveal shows, premium fight cards with stats that kind of look like the UFC. And so it actually feels like a digital Ultimate Fighting Sports League, but you also get to own the assets that are fighting for you for considerable Raptors prizes and glory and bragging rights. And so it creates this communal experience that's dope. And what happens with that is that over time, each of your champions has meaning to it, tied directly to the experiences that you shared fighting that champion and also fighting amongst your friends in the community. And one of the things that I noticed, as I told you, I stumbled upon TRV like super early in my journey in Web3 gaming. One of the things I noticed that was super frustrating, and Brendo kind of alluded to a lot of the IPs kind of being a bit more bright and cutesy. There were so many, and God bless them, but there were so many Pokemon clones and derivatives. There are so many. And one of the things that I always heard was, this game's going to be the next Pokemon. This game's going to be the next Pokemon. And even as a novice, I'm scratching my head and I'm like, guys, what you guys don't seem to understand here is that what makes Pokemon Pokemon is the connection that all of us have with the IP and the meaningful associations we have with the characters in that brand IP and ecosystem. Charizard's just not a cool fire lizard art. It's the moment of seeing Ash covering his fire tail in the forest, trying to keep him alive, or all of the zap, actions with the Pikachu and Ash, or Charizard being comedic relief whenever he's supposed to fight and he kind of just tells Ash to F off. Like, not to mention all of the card pack openings, and even more recently, the experiences with all of us getting to know Pokemon Go and that experience, and all of that looped into a meaningful association with the characters in that ecosystem. And so what's kind of happened with TRV is, as we're fighting these champions and you're kind of developing really, it sounds weird to say, but a relationship with these digital gladiators, a few cool things have started to happen. Number one, everybody in the community has kind of got their flagship champion. So like, if I have a video on my YouTube of highlights for the first year, and a lot of it is community highlights for our most epic moments, and about half of that video is just me with my champion Mammoth Sorrow, just getting dunked on or winning huge pots, and kind of the heartbreak and excitement that comes with that. And everyone's kind of at this point has a champion kind of similar to Pokemon, where Ash has Pikachu, Brock has Geodude, Misty has Starmie or Psyduck, where they kind of have a champion that's like their avatar, that's kind of associated with them. That's kind of their champion. And we've had situations where people will come and say, hey, I got this ETH for you for this champ. And even if it's a considerable amount of money, and I know this because I've been on both ends of those conversations, it's just like, yeah, no, because I love it. It's an attachment of my experience, not just through TRV from the beginning, but the whole ups and downs of the bull and the bear, and it's kind of a personification of our experience in Web3. And the fact that you can have a game that ties that type of meaning to an NFT is so important, especially when it comes to mass adoption, because what you find in this space, and I think we can all agree, is that you can kind of get in this weird cycle as a new player where you're kind of just chasing pumps and Twitter calls, and you just have a collection of NFTs at some point that they don't really mean anything. That there's a possibility of that to occur. And so I think having a meaningful experience tied to tokens in projects is really important. And TRV is a game that really does that really well.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about these NFTs, right? And especially for Web3 based games, NFTs are vital. They can make or break the game. So can you talk about the different types of assets in TRV ecosystem?
I think one of the probably seismic shifts that we've done with the Red Village, was really not look at that play to earn model really in any way, to be, prescriptive for the decisions that we're making about the ecosystem. So when we think about an ecosystem, it's not underpinned by, what you're referring to as a token or something like that. And, I guess that comes back to our thesis that, so play to earn was trying to do something very revolutionary, right? And it
Yep.
succeeded in some ways, and it failed in many as well. And so for us, the view that we always took on this was that there's many different ways to, like, skin an onion, I guess, or peel an onion, skin a cat. But there, good games have already been invented. And I think that's the core of it, right? People have been playing games since the dawn of time, and like I said before, every aspect of your life is gamified, right?
Yep.
But you don't need to be like catastrophic in reinventing this wheel. You don't need to have some cataclysmic brainwave to make games more fun, because games are already fun, right? People know how to make a good game. There's a fairly strong playbook for that, and I think that the emphasis and the onus on the tokenomics to make a game ecosystem sustainable, the needle swung way, 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 way too far that way, right? And we saw that because then you
Right.
have all these extractive players come in, and then all of a sudden, as soon as people realize that they're relying on, a token model, which is maybe not underpinned by something that people actually want to participate in, as soon as that realization hits them, then obviously the token price or whatever decreases, right? And so when we think about this, you know, I don't think that there's this, profound, unique selling point that adding a token to a game makes it better. I disagree
Right.
with that, and I've disagreed with that since day one, right? We put out an article called Play to Earn was big business, but Play and Earn will be bigger. And that was in, like, I don't know, late 2021 or something, right? At the height of Play to Earn, because I didn't see how it was sustainable or logical. And we've actually moved on internally from that quite a long time ago, even on Play and Earn, right? We may have catalyzed that term, but I think for us now, it's like play for fun, right? Why do you play games? You play to have fun. And there's a lot of
Mm.
different incentives, or there's a lot of different things that will keep you in that ecosystem. Sure, earning will be one of them, or maybe one of them, and that's fine. But don't underpin your ecosystem on this concept of cash. For our sort of game, right? For the
Yeah.
ecosystem that we're building, that will certainly be a part of it. And there will be games that do build their entire ecosystem on that. And that's absolutely fine. No shade. Like, I get what you're doing. We're just trying to build something which is much more akin to a Web 2 game. So, consider, I guess, the Red Village much more as that sort of Web 2.5, right? We're not fully on
Exactly.
chain. We do have a lot of elements of the blockchain, but we try and only leverage those that actually improve the player experience, and not just throw, I guess, blockchain in for the sake of it. And don't get me wrong, we've been there. We were very blockchain romantic when this first began, and we had a lot of blockchain elements. But what we found is that, the throughput, the efficacy, the way that blockchain would support the game would actually hinder it more than it would, improve the player experience. And so we've pivoted in a lot of ways to go away from that. So yeah, to answer that question about the token, no, we don't actually have one. At this stage in that sense. But what we do have is, obviously non-fungible tokens, right, or digital assets. And that's, I think quite a different thing. NFTs are super powerful, right? I don't think there's ever been like a more profound shift in the way that, assets will power entertainment. And that's,
Yeah.
particularly so in
Right.
gaming, which is, far and away the largest, field of entertainment, right?
Yep.
And, we've seen that there's a lot of pushback, I guess, significant pushback to NFTs, over the last 24 months or so. Our thesis is very strongly aligned with the Immutable thesis. Actually, is that problem is not driven by demand in any way, shape, or form. It's just being driven by supply. And by that, we mean there hasn't been particularly good games to play. And
Mhm.
I think that there's been a fundamental misunderstanding of the value proposition of digital assets and of tokens, right? So I think that the issue
Mm.
we've seen has been driven by supply. There hasn't been enough good games, and that's what we're really seeking to change. So to bring that back to your question. What are the tokens in the Red Village ecosystem? So at the moment, they're digital assets, and I think that that's something that's going to help really propel us for the right reasons.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And as we keep, talking about, I think the power of NFTs, right? And that being owned, it adds more value, if you do it correctly. And what's really
Right.
interesting, and I think the general Web3 gaming industry is also heading this way, with the ability for players to actually own the NFT assets, you can do a lot more in terms of utility. And the renting, being able to
Right.
borrow or even lend these, is another big subset coming as well.
Huge.
And I know this is coming right for TRV. So yeah, I want to kind of know, why is this renting feature beneficial to the TRV ecosystem?
I think as a player, especially when you think about the market that TRV has in terms of our player base, one of the things that's a little bit different than some of the prominent games during the play to earn wave is that our player base is predominantly North America, Europe, Australia, and we have a lot of players who provide a high lifetime player value to the ecosystem. A lot of these people are professionals, working full time job, making a decent amount of money to be able to put into the game that they enjoy, similar to the customer or player avatar of your average poker player who comes in after work to run some sit and goes and some multi table tournaments. And with that type of player profile, we have a lot of players who are asset rich, maybe, but very time poor. And so you have these assets that you love. You like to play the game when you have some time, but there's a discovery aspect of TRV where each champion has a preferred stance that they fight well in, and you need to be able to put your champion through a significant amount of fights in order to discover that optimal stance, gain wisdom, which you can use to understand the innate stats, the range of the innate stats that your champion has, and so there's an amazing opportunity for somebody who wants to play the game to be able to rent an asset for somebody who owns TRV champions and to be able to play those champions, fight those champions for them in order to also earn, but then also to help the owner of those assets do some of the discovery and the process for those champions, and really combine people who have a bit more time to play and want to kind of experience TRV at a lower barrier to entry. And so it just really adds a great fusion because, kind of going back to the idea of like having games that fit to not just your entire profile of the different games you play, but just your life habitual like routine, right? Like if you want to ingrain your game into the weekly routine of a player, not only do you have to think about how that game is fun to make them want to play, but also how can you kind of make that game be a part of that routine independent of what their schedule might be or their obligations. And
Hmm.
renting kind of allows a player to still remain engaged with your ecosystem even if they might not have a ton of time to play. And that's especially true for a lot of these Web3 games where quite a few of them have a breeding mechanic where that is a game in and of itself. We have some players, and you'll find that with games like this, you have some players where the breeding part is the fun of the game. They might not be that interested in doing a bunch of fights every week or entering a bunch of tournaments every week or whatever that version of that game is, but they love the breeding aspect. They love the buying aspect. They love the selling. They love the strategy part. And so having an opportunity for people to come in and kind of do the gameplay aspect at a low barrier while the other people who might be less more time poor, might not have as much time to do more of the strategy stuff. It allows everybody to play the game that they want to play in the easiest way and utilize everybody's specific profile. And so what IQ Protocol is doing for TRV is really amazing, and it's allowing a lot of players who are really dedicated about the game and have a lot of assets essentially give players from a bunch of different communities that we're looking to bring in for our upcoming event to experience TRV for the first time, experience that kind of communal gaming aspect that we love, and do so at a low barrier entry. And that's really important too, because typically with NFT games, the way the model works is you have a mint, a Genesis mint, maybe a companion mint, and it kind of makes the game and entry to that game token gated. And it's difficult, right? Because if I want to play Hogwarts Legacy, I get my $60 and I can play it anytime I want and I have that game forever. If I want to play X game, sometimes, the asset that I need to play is a considerable amount of money, way more than that. And so renting allows people a kind of a free trial or just a zero barrier of entry to be able to test the game out, have fun with it. And then we're working with IQ Protocol to create a quest system where you can come and play. And then the players who are the most engaged with the game, take to it the best, enjoy it the best, actually get rewarded with champions they can actually own, and then be integrated into the way we do everything else, with being able to own a champion, being able to summon, and be able to be integrated to our weekly tournaments that we stream, and be looped into that communal gaming experience. And so being able to leverage the service that they're providing it just really opens up a lot of doors for our players, and also the new players that want to test out a really exciting new game at no huge investment to them initially.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's literally unlocking value, right, and making it more liquid, more usable by others. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So like, how would it work? I know if I have to buy assets, very simple. Okay, I pay in crypto, get the asset. But when it comes to rental, right, is there like a
Sure.
fee, or yeah, like how do I actually rent it?
So the way rental's set up on IQ Protocols, and they have a marketplace where you can unlock your champion, list it, and you can actually set a fee if you want to have one. So all of it is on the holder end. So you can list for a fee, like a flat fee, in order to rent a champion. You can have a percentage fee that's directly tied. You can set the profit sharing. So if you want to do 0% and have the renter take all the profits just to get your champ out there and to be able to do discovery, you can set like a 50-50 split, whatever split you want in terms of the profit side, you can set, and then you can set a flat fee in order to rent. And so if you're a player and you want to just get your champs out there and give an opportunity for someone to run your champions and get that discovery and all the bonuses that come with that fight volume, you can set a 0 fee, an attractive profit sharing, but it's really a free market. You can set whatever that fee is that you want, and then you set your length that you want to list your champion on the rental marketplace, and then different players can accept. And there's also a really awesome component we worked with, and hats off to IQ Protocol, because what they're trying to do is super ambitious and really will add a huge value to the space, where they're looking to essentially be the premier third-party rental service for Web3 gaming, and a hub for gamers where they can come and try out different games, again, at that low barrier of entry. And so that requires a bit of functionality in order to smooth that process that's related to the needs of that specific game. And so one of the things they worked with us on is we've had this really amazing kind of development over the past few months, where we've been doing a few like streams and collaborations with other communities, and we've had new players come in. And what our players, our veteran players who have been with us since day one, have started doing, completely based on trust, is sending champions to these new players to just have, or to just trial out and say, hey, here's this champion. You go ahead and run it. I don't have the time. And it's crazy because we recently ran a Half-Blood championship in February with like nearly a $10,000 prize pool. And one of the finalists was actually a player that came from a stream that I did with one of our partners. He received we have a Blood Queens buyback. So basically you summon champions that you can donate to TRV, and we refund the cost, and you can then give that out to players. He started off with one champion, which was actually a pretty bad one. And he had some of our OGs to send him champions, let him, breed with champions. And he ended up building this barracks that's not only now, I think he's like 8th in all time in tournament volume or something insane like that, but also he was able to get to the grand finals for the Half-Blood Championship and compete for $3,500 in one match. And he literally, the date of that grand finals from his start date, I believe, was less than 28 days. And that was just all off the strength of OG sending him champions, being able to breed with some of our top champions. And so what IQ Protocol is now allowing us to do is essentially do that exact process, but trustless. So now we can input the wallet. So like, say you have a new player come in, we see that green leaf in Discord, it's like, hey man, welcome. Hey, I got this champ. What's your favorite class? Oh, barbarians. I got this barbarian. What's your wallet? I put it in. And now we can essentially airdrop a version of our champions to any player that we want, have them run it, tied to the rewards. And it again, it's that bridging that gap of Web3 veterans and new players that I think is really going to be essential for mass adoption and growth of the player base for any project that really wants to create a communal gaming experience.
God, man, hats off your community. Like, that's so tight knit. I just want to help
It's
each other kind of thing.
It's one of the best, man. And I know a lot of people say that, and I know we want to say one of the best because that's the correct thing to do. But I'll say, Brendo can't say it, but I'll say it's the best community Web3. It's just amazing, man. And we really rally behind each other. And we really support our new players. And I think renting and the way our IQ protocol is working with us to develop renting is really kind of setting a new standard in terms of gaming, because we want to kind of set a standard in Web2 games where I'm sorry Web3 games where there's a kind of a big brother little brother kind of mentorship partnership dynamic between new players and OG players, and renting is a great way to be able to do that. We've even talked about having like a rookie vet cup where when you donate a champion to a player, or you rent substantial champions to a player, we can have like a dual bracket tournament with one with the OG and one with the rookie, and they're kind of like they have a prize pool that they share based on their average placements. There's so many cool things we can do to kind of bridge that gap between veteran Web3 players and new players, and I think what IQ Protocol is building is really helping us set a standard of what can be done in that arena.
That is so brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I like this. It's because like a lot of play to earn games, like you have these OGs, right, that were there, and they kind of like shun the new people because they want to, of course, protect their
Yeah,
stance and their
yeah.
position. Yeah, but the Red Village
and
is,
it's
turning
and
that
it's so
upside down.
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because we understand that that's counterintuitive. Because when you're in these projects and you are listening to their conversations, it's all about how do we get new players? How do we get new players? Well, the way you do that is by opening up your community, and not just in terms of making it welcoming in the Discord, but giving them an actual opportunity to compete with you, to share with them, and be transparent about strategy. Give them a little bit of a leg up, giving them a good champ or giving them a deal on a breed here and there. And we've seen the return on that be fruitful, and it will continue to be so for the communities that are willing to just be open to the new players that come in.
Just from a meta level of like, why is rental important? Um,
Mm-hmm.
is we look at what games are successful now, and a lot of them have a low barrier to entry or a zero barrier to entry. A lot of games are free to
Right.
play.
Fortnite.
And this is something that, yeah, Fortnite, exactly. And this is something that, is embraced in traditional gaming, right? Like, come
Yeah.
play for free. And this is something that hasn't necessarily been embraced at all in Web3 gaming. And so this allows us to,
100%.
as you say, you talk about, the opportunity for players to come in with a low entry cost. Yeah, but I think it's bigger than that. It's the opportunity to build an ecosystem that doesn't need you necessarily to really pay anything to come and
Yeah.
play. And so that's something that's just really, I think, crucial to build, in games these days. And don't get me wrong, there's still titles that they sell their titles, right? Of course, there's,
Yeah.
guys making billions of dollars from that, or teams making billions of dollars from that. But it's just another way of looking at gaming. And so when we think about how do we encroach on the incumbents, a lot of it is just how do we get free to play. And part of that comes back to reducing friction and onboarding, because it's a pain. It's an absolute nightmare to navigate blockchain, right? And that's just a fact of life, that people don't want to be getting a new degree in maths to work out how to bridge assets from X to Y to Z. So if you can just start to have these platforms or these protocols that allow you to do a bunch of different things to get an easy way to onboard or to reduce that friction, then I think that's really cool. And renting is one of those. And, just I guess the main point there is that, free to play is great, but maybe there's an opportunity, another sort of method of player acquisition, which is not just free to play, but it's like, okay, come and try a particular asset out. And this is something that, even Fortnite doesn't do. You got to buy that thing if you want to play as that, but you can go,
Right.
okay, I want to try this guy in his particular, whatever it is in your game, if it's a stable or a barracks or a whatever you call it, where you house your assets. Someone wants to go, I want to try playing as that for a while. Yeah, you know what? That was cool. Try before you buy. Yeah, that's worth spending some money on. And so it just adds that one extra little step before you have to make that big jump into either, an asset, whatever the price of that is. You can get stuff on Fortnite for a few bucks, but whatever that asset, and then that's when you start to really get that lifetime, I guess, customer value, because people start to make then repeat purchases. So yeah, renting, really important, and we're excited to have it.
Exactly. Yeah. And now that we're talking about this, I think for the people who aren't convinced yet, right? Can you share about what are the hottest upcoming developments or tournaments, right, that people can actually start participating in if they're not in TRV yet?
There's really at the moment two main parts to the ecosystem. There's tournaments, which we've spent a lot of time talking about today, and that's one sort of or many, but one player sort of prototype or archetype that'll appeal to a certain group of player, right? And we're also looking to build something which is a little bit different, which is player controlled. And this is I guess less strategic and more Twitch based, reaction based gaming, something more akin to, like a Fortnite or a RuneScape or something like that, where there's elements of the strategy, but also elements of like how good are you, just in the environment of actually playing the game at the time. Moment to moment action. And so that's what we're building. We're building something at the moment, and this is something that we're working really closely with Animoca Brands. So obviously, Animoca Brands, is a large partner of ours, and so we work with their game studio that they have in Sydney, Australia, called Blowfish Studios. We spend a lot of time with them, every week building out what's code name at the moment called the Darklands. And Darklands is, as I said, it's a player control game. It's really exciting. It's darker. It gives you much more of a narrative, more story, more ways to sort of engage. If you're that kind of gamer, someone that is less inclined to sort of sit back, look at the stats, look at the data, and sort of get involved from a Twitch streaming angle, you're someone that wants to get in there and get their hands dirty themselves, this is a game that will really appeal to you. So this is one that there's a lot of development going into. It's a long, expensive, big process building games, but it's something that we're really proud of, and we're hoping to have I guess a playable alpha out towards the end of this year, with release next year. And don't hold me to that, but that's sort of where we're at the moment, and things are looking fantastic. We're looking at 3D art prototypes, and they're just out of this world. They're really exciting, and something that we're really excited to sort of share with people. So yeah, I guess getting into TRV as an ecosystem now, there's lots of different ways that you can enjoy your assets, right? And this is something I think that is, hopefully we're going to be at the forefront of sort of gaming going forward.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys seem very confident, so no doubt about that. Very nice. It seems like you guys have so much planned in the pipeline. I think there's plenty for anyone to get started with. And one comment I want to share is it's always a fun journey to talk and learn from these Animoca ecosystem. Of course, starting from Yasu himself, Sebastian from the Sandbox, right? His vision for the metaverse, and then we even have like Rev Racing, right, which is like the racing genre, and then now we have you guys, which is like the dark fantasy. So what I can say is you guys seem very, very focused, and like exactly what's going to work, what isn't, what players want, and just being very realistic, right? Not just la la land, bull market type of mentality, but
Right.
hey, yeah, what do players want? How can we actually improve without being so radical? So props to that, right? Being focused is good.
Final takeaways, I think from our perspective are that this is a really good time. I know you could probably say that at any time, but I think this is a particularly exciting time to come and really get involved in the Red Village because of this partnership with IQ Protocol, because of what rental that they're building allows us to do. It's a really kind of risk-free way to come and see, okay, do I like this? Is this the sort of game, the community, the ecosystem that I would like to be involved in? Again, it doesn't have to be the only one that you want to play, but maybe it becomes one of many that you want to play. It's a pretty sticky game in that, once you come and sit in, if you're a Discord person, you come and sit in the Discord, you kind of get hooked. It's a lot of fun in there.
Nothing like it.
We had a bunch of our players meet up a couple of months ago and actually just hang out in real life and,
cool.
have a lot of fun together too. So this is something that I think is really cool. So yeah, it's a good time to get in because the barriers to entry are getting lower. The game loops, as we call them, are getting more complete. So your ability to sort of enjoy things in many different ways is getting more complete. And then we have Darklands, very much on the horizon, very, approaching rapidly. So yeah, come and give it a go, see how you feel. And, we're always open to suggestions too. If you know how to make this stuff more fun, beautiful thing about Web3 is it's a very much open line of communication. Myself, my co-founders, the whole team, we're all in the Discord. You can tag us, message us, get onto us, we're there. So that's something that's probably quite unique when it comes to, building a business in Web3.
Yeah, and I would just say, it's very rare in this space as a player to be able to come into a project a year and a half after its genesis mint, have not only a functional, playable game and a thriving community, but to be able to enter into that community and that game at no barrier to entry and have an opportunity to have ownership of valuable assets and a stake in all of the awesome development that's coming to that community and that project in the years following. And so I would just say anyone who's watching this right now, this is an amazing opportunity to get into a game that delivered a functional playable game 4 months after its genesis mint. No shade, but there's some games that minted around the time we did that still don't have a functional game out yet. So you have
That's
a
true.
team that's shipping updates constantly. They're delivering a game that's super fun. There's a 15-minute YouTube video of me hooping and hollering about all the best experiences this game can offer you. I'm not selling snake oil. This game is fun. It makes your NFTs meaningful. And I think especially now, given the market and NFTs in general, the ability to enter an ecosystem in a community where your NFTs actually matter and you have an opportunity to have fun and collaborate and have a communal gaming experience with an awesome community, and also have a stake in all the awesome developments that TRB is bringing, not just with Tournament Node, but this AAA game being developed and launching over the next year. It's an amazing opportunity, and it creates a unique opportunity for entry that not many games in this space provide. And so we definitely recommend you guys hop into our upcoming rental event sponsored by IQ Protocol and join the village, man. We'll be there to welcome you and make sure you have a really fun time.
Perfect. Yeah. And then one final takeaway for us is we always like to say in blockchain, don't just believe us, right? Go verify yourself, go play the game. And that's it, right? It speaks for itself.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Proof of play.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brandon and Compton, it's been an absolute pleasure, having you on our channel. And we hope to have you back someday, when you guys make much more progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Love to come
All right,
back.
best
Thanks
of
for having
luck.
us.
All right.
Thank you. Likewise.